All right, we're going to walk through a scenario here. Now, it's fictional, but it's built on some very real strategic thinking about how a global order that's been in place for decades could just shatter in minutes.
It all kicks off with this single, absolutely stunning line. Think about it. 4 United States Navy destroyers are on the bottom of the Strait of Hormuz. Not damaged, not even disabled, on the bottom. This is it. This is the moment everything changes.
And here's the part that's just mind-blowing. The whole thing, from the very first missile in the air to the last ship hitting the seabed, took less than 40 minutes. Just 40 minutes. So, the obvious question is how? How on earth does the most powerful navy in the world suffer a defeat this catastrophic, this fast? That's exactly what we're going to break down.
All right, let's dive right into the battle itself. To really get what happened here, you've got to understand the battlefield, because the geography, well, it's absolutely lethal.
You see, the Strait of Hormuz is basically a natural kill zone. I mean, at its narrowest point, it's only 33 kilometers wide. For a massive warship, there's just no room to maneuver, no space to run. You're always just a few minutes away from a missile launch from the Iranian coast. You're a sitting duck.
And this wasn't just a random barrage of missiles. No. This was a carefully planned, step-by-step ambush. The first wave, its job wasn't to sink the ships. It was to blind them, take out their eyes and ears, their radar, their defensive systems. Then came the second salvo, the heavy hitters, the knockout punch. And after that, more waves to just overwhelm whatever was left. It's a terrifyingly smart and methodical plan.
So after all that, the US ships that were still afloat did the only smart thing they could do. They pulled back. Tactically, it was the right call. But strategically, the entire world was watching. And what they saw was a retreat. The United States Navy had just been forced out of the strait under fire.
So, what was the game changer here? What was the weapon that made all this possible? Well, let's get into the tech that really tipped the scales. A missile called the Khalij Fars.
The Khalij Fars is an anti-ship ballistic missile, or ASBM for short. Now, this is totally different from your standard cruise missile that flies low, skimming the waves. An ASBM goes way up, high into the atmosphere, and then comes almost straight down on top of its target at insane speeds. And this right here is the heart of the problem. The US Navy's premier defense, the Aegis system, is an absolute marvel of engineering, but it's designed to stop threats coming in low and fast horizontally. It was built for a completely different kind of fight. The ASBM just sidesteps all of that by coming straight down from above. It's attacking from an angle Aegis was never really built to handle. A fatal mismatch in geometry.
But here's the kicker. It wasn't just the ASBMs. The attack was layered. You had the ballistic missiles coming from way up high, cruise missiles coming in at medium altitude, and sea skimmers right on top of the water, all hitting at the same time from totally different directions. There's no defense system in the world that can track and shoot down that many things from that many angles all at once. It's a pure saturation attack. It just overwhelms everything. And this gets to a really crucial point. A fundamental asymmetry in warfare. It is way, way cheaper and easier to build a whole bunch of missiles to attack with than it is to build a super sophisticated system to defend against them. In this specific fight, Iran's investment in a high-volume offense beat America's investment in a high-tech defense.
Okay, so the shooting has stopped, but now the real crisis begins. Let's shift from the tactical disaster on the water to the strategic paralysis it creates back in Washington, D.C. With 4 destroyers at the bottom of the Gulf, the U.S. is facing a menu of impossible choices. And the word to describe the Pentagon's reaction here isn't cautious or measured, it's paralyzed. They've just been hit with a scenario that literally isn't in their playbooks. All the planning, all the protocols, they just don't apply anymore.
Just look at the options on the table. It's a perfect strategic trap. Do you launch a few limited strikes? That's probably too weak. Iran can absorb it and will just hit back. Okay. So what about a massive military campaign to take out their missile sites for good? Well, that would almost certainly lead to Iran shutting down the strait completely, sparking a huge regional war, and with it, a global economic meltdown. There are no good options.
And let's be really clear about what a global economic meltdown actually means. We're talking about 20% of the entire world's oil supply passing through that one tiny choke point. If it closes, it's not just some line on a graph. The shockwave would make past oil crises look tiny. It would affect the price of gas, food, everything, for every single one of us.
So you have to wonder, why would Iran take such an enormous risk?
To get that, we need to try and see this from their perspective, which has been shaped by decades of a single, focused goal.
This wasn't some impulsive move. As you can see here, this was the final move in a game they've been playing for 40 years. It's all been about building what military planners call an anti-access/area denial capability. Fancy term, simple idea. Make your backyard so dangerous that a superpower can't come into it. This attack was the execution of a plan decades in the making.
And really, this whole thing boils down to two completely different ways of seeing the world that just can't be reconciled. From the U.S. perspective, its Navy is there to keep the peace and protect global trade. But from Iran's perspective, they look out their window and see a hostile superpower's military parked permanently on their doorstep. It's total encirclement. So, the battle is over. The immediate crisis is in full swing. What happens next? What does this mean for everybody else? Because the ripple effects from this are going to be massive, and they're going to be global. I mean, just look at who depends on that strait. We're talking about China, Japan, South Korea, India, huge parts of Europe. All of their economies are critically dependent on that oil getting through. This isn't just a US-Iran problem anymore. It's a crisis for the entire world.
And so right now, in capitals all over the world, everyone is scrambling. Does China see an opening to become the new mediator in the Middle East? Is Russia secretly loving this, with oil prices skyrocketing and the US distracted? And maybe the biggest question of all, do America's allies, who have lived under the U.S. security umbrella for generations, start to wonder if that umbrella still works? Everything is suddenly up for grabs.
And that really is the bottom line here. For nearly half a century, the entire global system has operated on one simple assumption: the United States Navy guarantees the freedom of the seas. And in the space of 40 minutes, in the most critical waterway on the planet, that assumption was just shattered.
So, that wreckage at the bottom of the strait, it's more than just a military defeat. It's a turning point in history, and it leaves all of us with one final, massive question. The old rules of power are broken. Who gets to write the new ones?